Welcome back to Beyond Belief, the channel where we explore the mysterious and unexplained corners of our world. Today we journey through New Mexico's most chilling locations. From haunted theaters to insane asylums, let's get started. Number 10, Dawson, New Mexico. Dawson, New Mexico used to be this buzzing mining town sitting about 17 miles northeast of Cimarron. It's famous, or rather infamous, for being part of some seriously tragic mining history in the US, with not one, but two huge disasters that took a lot of lives. Back in the day, under Phelps Dodge Corporation's eye, Dawson turned into something pretty special for the early 20th century. We're talking about a hospital, a theater, and yes, even an opera house. It was the place to be, pulling people from all over the world to work in its mines. But as awesome as it sounded above ground, below was a different story. Mining coal was dangerous work, filled with accidents and the constant threat of black lung disease. The first big disaster hit on October 22, 1913, with an explosion in Stag Canyon Mine No. 2 that was so bad, it took 263 miners with it. That's one of the worst mining accidents the US has ever seen. Then, as if that wasn't enough, another explosion in Stag Canyon Mine No. 1 happened a decade later, claiming 123 more lives. Dawson was left with a deep scar of loss and sorrow after these events. Even though there were attempts to make mining safer and a short comeback during World War II, the rise of diesel-electric trains and natural gas pretty much ended coal's heyday. By 1950, Dawson's mines shut down, and the town got sold off to a salvage company, leaving behind just a few buildings and a cemetery, which is now on the National Register of Historic Places to tell its story. Now, when you visit Dawson Cemetery with those white iron crosses marking the miners' graves, it's a real sobering sight. It makes you think about all those folks who left too soon. Plus, there are all these stories about ghostly sounds, whispers, and apparitions around, making it seem like the spirits of those miners are still hanging around, maybe not ready to leave the place that was their life, but also their end. Number 9, Hotel Park Central. Right in the heart of Albuquerque on Central Avenue, you'll find Hotel Park Central. It's not just any hotel. It's a cool mix of luxury, history, and a few ghost stories to spice things up. This place has got it all. 74 rooms, 15 fancy suites, and 3 cozy cottages. It all started back in 1924 as a hospital for railroad workers. Then in the 80s, it shifted gears to become a mental health hospital before turning into the awesome hotel we see today. This spot's history is as colorful as a New Mexico sunset, complete with ghost tales that'll give you the chills. The stories around Hotel Park Central are as old as the building itself, especially from when it was a hospital. Imagine patients in their rooms and suddenly seeing ghosts wandering the halls, hearing voices with no one around, or watching stuff move on its own. These spooky experiences didn't just stop with the hospital days. Even today's guests swear they've bumped into the hotel's otherworldly residents. People visiting Hotel Park Central often say they feel like someone's always watching them, hearing whispers or footsteps when the place is as quiet as a desert night. The third floor? That's the main stage for the ghostly action, with loads of guests claiming to have seen a lady just doing her thing. And for the brave souls, some ghost hunters even checked into the hotel trying to chat with the spirits using nothing but a flashlight that flickered on cue. Number 8, the Double Eagle. Back in 1849, Valentin Mays, a guy who made his fortune in the shipping business, built this swanky place in Mesilla. It was all about showing off his success and standing at the top of the social ladder. But behind all that glitz, there was a love story going on that was straight out of a drama. Armando Mays and Inez were head over heels for each other, keeping it hush-hush from everyone, especially from Armando's mom, Mrs. Carlotta Mays. Everyone called her La Señora, who wouldn't have approved. When the secret got out, things went south real fast, ending in a heartbreaking tragedy with both lovers losing their lives in a super intense showdown. This whole mess left a dark cloud over the Mays family, especially La Señora, who couldn't shake off the guilt and sadness. Fast forward to the 1970s, Robert O. Anderson gave the place a new lease on life, turning it into the Double Eagle Hotel. It's a spot that's not just a nod to Mesilla's history, but also a tribute to Armando and Inez, especially when the Day of the Dead rolls around, celebrating the area's rich culture and history. Now the hotel's got some extra guests who've decided to stick around. Armando and Inez's ghosts, who seem to enjoy hanging out with the living. And La Señora Carlotta? She's around too, keeping things low-key, staying close to her son, with her husband's ghost for company. She's known to mingle with the living, leaving a trail of lavender scent behind, making sure everyone knows she's still part of the scene. If you're enjoying this haunted tour, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. It helps so much. We've got more haunted tales ahead, and you won't want to miss a single one. If you have a state you'd like us to cover, drop it in the comment section below. Number 7, the Chemo Theater. The Chemo Theater in Albuquerque is a real gem, mixing up some stunning architecture with a dash of ghost stories. Opened back on September 19, 1927 by Oreste Bacecchi, this place was a big deal from the start. It rocks this cool Pueblo Deco style, which is like a mashup of Native American vibes and Art Deco flashiness. It quickly became the go-to spot for all kinds of entertainment, from movies and vaudeville to big road shows. But it's not all just glitz and glamour. The Chemo has a bit of a spooky side too, thanks to a couple of tragedies. Back in 1951, a terrible accident happened when a boiler exploded, taking the life of a 6-year-old kid named Bobby Darnell, who was spooked by something he saw on screen and ran out to the lobby. People say Bobby's spirit stuck around, becoming the local prankster ghost who likes to mess with the staff and visitors. Things took another dark turn in 1963 with a fire that almost led to the Chemo being torn down. But the folks in Albuquerque wouldn't have it, saving the theater and restoring it to its former splendor. Now, it's a buzzing spot for the performing arts again. Even with all the excitement and performances, the ghostly tales, especially about Bobby and a mysterious lady in a bonnet roaming around, add an extra layer of intrigue to the place. Performers even leave donuts out for Bobby to keep things running smoothly, which is just one of those quirky traditions that make the Chemo Theater so unique. Listed on the National Register of Historic Places, the Chemo isn't just about shows and history. It's also a place where Albuquerque's spooky stories live on. Number 6, Holy Cross Sanatorium. The Holy Cross Sanatorium has quite the story, starting off with a pretty practical purpose to support Camp Cody as an industrial site before taking on a whole new role. When it got repurposed into a sanatorium, it became a beacon of hope for those battling tuberculosis, a really tough illness that brought a lot of people to Deming, hoping for a miracle. Despite the high hopes, many didn't make it, and the place has its share of sad stories, with some finding peace far from there and others resting in the local cemetery under the guard of Cook's Peak. Those iron crosses and the quiet around them really make you think about all the lives touched by the place. Over time, Holy Cross became more famous for its ghost stories than its history. From love stories written in blood to sightings of ghostly dogs and strange figures, the place got a reputation for being haunted, especially the old boiler plant. But if you look deeper, Holy Cross was much more than these spooky tales. It was a sanctuary for many, a place where they came to terms with their fate, surrounded by the beautiful but harsh New Mexico landscape. It represented a final chapter for many, filled with both acceptance and the natural beauty of the area. Even though the buildings might be gone, the stories of those who passed through there, the care they received, and the peace some found, keep the spirit of Holy Cross alive in the community's memory. Number 5, Herstein Memorial Museum. This place has been around since 1919, and boy, has it seen some changes. It started off as a place where folks would come together to pray, but over the years, it turned into the town's go-to spot for fun. Think bowling, reading up a storm in the library, or gliding around in a roller skating rink. Fast forward to 1987, and thanks to the generosity of the Albert and Ethel Herstein Charitable Foundation, it got a fresh lease on life. They kept its cool old-school vibe while turning it into a treasure chest of stories from the Wild West, the gritty Dust Bowl days, and the tough times of the Great Depression. Walking through the museum is like hopping into a time machine. You'll stumble upon all sorts of bits and bobs picked up along the Santa Fe Trail, each telling its own tale of the old days. And oh, you can't miss the scoop on Black Jack Ketchum, the notorious guy who went down in history for being the only guy to ever swing for a train robbery in New Mexico. The stuff here isn't just old relics. It's a window into the lives of folks who toughed it out during some seriously rough patches in America's story. But hey, there's more to the Herstein Memorial Museum than just history. This place has its share of spooky secrets. Ever heard the click-clack of high heels when no one's there? Yep, that's the resident ghost, an older lady who's not quite ready to leave. Paranormal experts even gave it the thumbs up in 2015, confirming there's something ghostly going on. And she's not alone. The museum's got its share of eerie sounds and sights, including a little kid's voice that's enough to give you goosebumps. It's all part of the charm that makes this spot a must-visit for both history buffs and ghost hunters alike. Number 4, the Hotel Eklund. This sandstone beauty from 1892 has seen it all, morphing from a lively shop to a boutique hotel that's practically a time machine thanks to its careful preservation. Keith and Jeanette Barris and JoBeth Vigil Price aren't just the hotel's keepers. They're like the living memory of Clayton, deeply connected to its history and the stories etched in their family's past. They're particularly passionate about keeping the spirit, figuratively and literally, of the place alive, including the tales of old barroom brawls that are part of their own legacy. Now, the hotel itself is something straight out of a ghost story, especially the saloon in room 307, where guests and staff swear they've bumped into ghosts. The star of the show is Irene, a former maid whose footsteps and fleeting glimpses in the wallpaper suggest she's still around. Keith Barris thinks of her more as a protective presence than a spooky ghost, especially after a guest claimed Irene cured their migraine. Spirited older lady who's become something of a local celebrity, especially after ghost hunters gave her the seal of approval. Between this historic hotel and the museum, Clayton's got enough tales of the past and paranormal to keep any history buff or ghost hunter intrigued. Number 3. Otero County Courthouse in Alamogordo, New Mexico. There's a place where law and legend collide. The Otero County Courthouse. Built in 1956 to replace an older building, this spot's known for more than just its role in the justice system. It's the eerie stories and unexplained happenings that really grab people's attention. Imagine walking through those halls only to see a guy from the 1920s just strolling around, or hearing doors slam shut with no one in sight. Even weirder, some folks have had stuff like pens and papers just go flying off desks on their own. And it's not just hearsay, there's actual surveillance footage catching some of these spooky moments in action. There's the story of an employee who felt something or someone messing with her hair while she was alone in the bathroom. Talk about a hair-raising experience. Then there's Kenneth Schaffer, the maintenance guy who's no stranger to the courthouse's chillier side, with doors slamming and sudden drops in temperature that'll give you goosebumps. It seems like almost everyone working there has their own ghost story, making the courthouse famous for its uninvited, unseen guests. While some people might get the creeps from these encounters, others, like Teresa Gonzalez, find them absolutely fascinating. She's one of the believers, convinced that the courthouse is home to some otherworldly residents. Between the legal battles and ghostly tales, the Otero County Courthouse is anything but ordinary. Number 2, Grant Corner Inn. Back in 1905, a family moved into this home, hoping for a fresh start, but instead, they stumbled into a saga of misfortune. The arrival of a frail child and the sudden loss of the father plunged them into a relentless cycle of caretaking and mourning, shrouding the home in a melancholic aura. The house seemed to hold on to these sad tales, with neighbors and visitors reporting eerie sounds like a child's cries or the haunting noise of a wheelchair crashing down the stairs. Echoes of the young boy's struggles. Even after the family moved on, leaving the house in quiet abandonment, strange occurrences like flickering lights in the empty child's room and unexplained noises suggested that something remained. As time went on, this place got a new lease on life as a bed and breakfast, but the stories of its past residents lingered. Caretakers and guests would occasionally experience inexplicable cold drafts or the faint smell of decay, adding to its mystique. However, under Louise Stewart's care, who took on major renovations, the unsettling ambience seemed to dissipate, as if the troubled spirit had finally found solace or perhaps left the premises, leaving behind a legacy of whispers. Number 1, the Penitentiary of New Mexico. Since it first opened its doors back in 1885, this penitentiary has seen more than its fair share of dark days. It's like the line between right and wrong got all fuzzy, with too many people crammed into too little space, fights breaking out, and not one but 2 major riots shaking its foundations. The one in 1980, totally off the charts in terms of chaos and violence, making it a notorious chapter in prison history with 33 lives lost in a nightmare of brutality. All that misery and mistreatment didn't just leave physical scars, it kind of soaked into the walls, setting the stage for some seriously spooky stories. Cell Block 4 is at the heart of it all. That place saw the worst of the worst during the riots, and now it's like a magnet for anyone chasing ghosts or trying to get a real feel for the place's painful history. Ghost hunters and visitors keep talking about seeing shadows in old prison uniforms or hearing the clank of cell doors slamming shut out of nowhere. Cold spots pop up like reminders of the souls that checked out in the worst possible ways. But it's Cell Block 4 that really gives people the creeps. Walking through those empty cells, you can almost hear the echoes of what went down. It's a stark reminder of how ugly things can get and the strength some folks have to just keep going, even when the end is nowhere in sight. Now, with the penitentiary closed and just being used for training or movie shoots, it stands as a ghostly monument to all the lives that passed through its gates, both the ones that made it out and the ones that didn't. Thanks for joining us on this ghostly journey through New Mexico. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more videos from Beyond Belief. It helps out a lot. Thank you to all of our subscribers. Until next time, guys, keep exploring the unexplained.